We'll have Rebecca come to tell us about the impact of input subsidies on household food availability in rural Zambia. Rebecca?
Good morning. I'm presenting on the impact of farmer input subsidies on food access in rural households of Zambia, a gender perspective. And I'm presenting on behalf of other colleagues, Rhoda Mofia Mukuka, Blair Shakobola Chewenkonde, and Pamela Marinda. I'll take you through that outline. You find that in Africa, most of the rural population are actually poor and food insecure. And this is mainly attributed to the low use of improved farm inputs and also low productivity and production. To this effect, the Republic of the government of Zambia has actually used the second national agricultural policy to reflect these issues. The second objective in the national agricultural policy focuses on increasing agricultural production and productivity through enhanced use of farm inputs. And also the fourth objective focuses on enhancing food security and nutritional security through agricultural diversification, agricultural production, and food utilization. And one of the vehicles which the government is using to address these issues is the fertilizer input support program. To take you through briefly, a number of changes have taken place since its reintroduction in 2002, from its name change as the Fertilizer Support Program to increasing the number of crops being supported, and now actually, to increasing the numbers of the crops being supported. Now, like in 2015-16, the e-voucher system was introduced, which now focuses more on a broader range of crops, aquaculture, and also livestock. But then you find that this input policy has been criticized in that farmers, smallholder farmers, are actually failing to graduate to commercial farmers. And also, you find that participation in these input subsidy policies is actually skewed against women. And yet, we realize that actually women's access to inputs is actually lower than their male counterparts. But we also know that women actually contribute a lot towards labor and their time in agricultural activities. They also focus more on food crops, whilst the male counterparts actually focus more on cash crops. Bringing it down to Zambia, we realize that Zambia ranks 116th out of 145 countries worldwide in the Gender Gap Index. And also, when you measure the global hunger index, Zambia is the global hunger index is 39% for Zambia compared to 23.8% for Africa and 11.3% for the world. So actually, you can see there is a link between gender inequality and hunger problems. But most of the studies that have focused on the role of the input subsidies in food and nutritional security have focused more on welfare effects, but they haven't really looked at what is the impact of the gendered participation in these programs on food security. And that is actually the aim of this study. It aimed at estimating the impact of gendered participation in FISIP on household food access measured by months of adequate food provisioning. So that is how we conceptualize our studies. You find that various demographic, socioeconomic, and with the agroecological zone a household is domiciled in actually affects participation in FISIP. And whether a household participates in FISIP can actually, if it participates in FISIP, we anticipate that it will increase agricultural output, enhance agricultural diversification, and increase expenditure on food, because when they sell this produce, we expect that some of that money can be used to enhance the quality and quantity of their diets, which would have a positive impact on months of adequate food provisioning. But of course, there is the back loop, okay? When they increase these outcomes, you may find that actually it may have a positive impact on socio-economic factors. We use the Rural and Agricultural Livelihood Survey data. These are panel data sets from 2012 and 2015. And we use the correlated random effect to analyze the impact of gendered participation in FISIP on months of adequate food provisioning. And of course, our variable of interest was B6, where we interacted FISIP participation with gender of the decision maker. Going to the results, we see that actually there has been an increase in households with female decision makers. There has been an increase, but still you find that there are more households with male decision makers. When we look at the distribution of months of adequate household provisioning by province, we see that Western, Southern, and Ruapula provinces actually are more food insecure. And this is because of the rainfall patterns in those areas and also the soil, the nature of the soils. When we look at the differences between the female decision maker, the households with female decision makers and male decision makers, we realize that actually households with female decision makers have low months of food adequate provisioning, lower education, higher age, low access to resources in terms of land, labor, but they're nearer to markets. But also, another important point to note, actually, they are more diversified, as indicated by the Simpson Diversification Index. Now, these are the results for the impact. When you look at the first row, you see that actually a household with the chances of a household with a female decision maker having a lower months of adequate provisioning is 31.8%. But the odds increase, the odds of having a higher months of adequate food provisioning increase by 24.8%. And of course, we see the important role of diversification and agriculture extension. Yes, and of course, we see that yes, we've talked about agriculture diversification, access to extension, and all these other things. But then what are the implications to policy? Government should invest in services that help increase crop diversification, especially extension services, rural infrastructure. And strategies should be put in place to support female-headed households to access inputs. And the strategy where the government has introduced the e-voucher system, that's a good strategy instead of blanket input distribution, because this can take care of what people want to diversify in, and more needs to be taken, stakeholders need to take care of those provinces with low months of adequate food provisioning, inadequate food provisioning. Thank you very much.